Thanks for staying with us on TVC News. The prosperity of any nation hinges on an efficient government which can adequately manage its resources to generate more revenue to boost the economy. Now, this effective management of the cost of governance is an issue that always elicits divergent reactions on whether the high nature over the years is justifiable. Now, some would argue that the impact on development has been negative, calling for a cut in spending, while others believe a positive outcome is dependent on the utilization of resources. And as several leaders have come and gone, laying their footprints in the nation, the questions on achieving a cost-effective government are yet to abate. And continuing this conversation, I have with me here in the studio my colleague Asukwa James, assignment editor. Asukwa, it's nice to have you join me right now.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And I have joining me also a member of the 8th Senate and rights activist, Senator Shehu Sani, joining me all the way from Kaduna. Senator, it's good to have you join me now. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Great. Now, let me start with you, Senator, before I come to the studio. When it comes to what is the challenge with the Nigerian government or a system of governance, because if you look at the time of independence, Nigeria had contemporaries like India, Brazil, and the others. They have all gone, leaving Nigeria behind. Some say, some Nigerians who are even elite, who understand, who are leaders, said the problem is the leadership. Others have said, no, that's not the leadership, it's the constitution. Others have said, no, it's the makeup of the federation and all of that. Well, you are an activist being on the side of the people. You have been a leader. On the other hand, you understand these things. Talk to us basically. What is the challenge with the governance in Nigeria? Why are we still where we are right now?
Thank you for having me once again. Well, it is too simplistic for you to point at one issue and say that is the problems of Nigeria, that is why we are not moving forward, and that is why we are not progressing. It is a combination of so many things, one of which is that we had derailed from the very ideals, principles, and spirit of nationhood that has been entrenched in the First Republic. And then secondly, we had a series of governments that has consistently discontinued with programs and policies, even if they are not good, of the government that succeeded. Thirdly, the kind of leadership we bred over the years. If you look at the first generation of Nigerian leaders, you can see patriots, nationalists, selfless leaders who have dedicated their life to the service of their country and to the service of their people. But what do you have later is quite a different thing. And then we were unable to build a nation since after independence. We still see ourselves as Muslims, as Christians first, and then secondly, we see ourselves as people belonging to a particular region or particular ethnic group or tribe. That is also a problem. And then at the end of it all is that since 1999, which was an opportunity for us to build a new nation after prolonged years of military rule, then we have a generation of leaders that never knew what was it to fight for freedom, to struggle for freedom, and to encounter what was persecution under military rule. So for them, as far as power was concerned, was an opportunity for them to serve themselves, not serve the country. And that power is not being seen as an opportunity to serve. It's being seen as if you have conquered a territory and you are occupying a territory and dominating the people, and whoever is there not with you is your subject or your slave. So in a situation like this, we can't make any serious progress. We need to be inspired by nations that have achieved, like China, like Indonesia, like Malaysia. But each time we have new governments, we look up to the West that are 5 to 6 generations ahead of us in development. So as far as I'm concerned, the constitution is the problem, the leadership is the problem, our own mindset is the problem, we need to fix all these things together. Fundamentally, we need to restructure our economy, restructure our politics, and restructure ourselves as a people. Do we want to build a nation that will be a thing of pride for us, for children and our grandchildren? Do we want to have a country that will be, that each and every person, whether you are a Muslim, Christian, Efik, Ibibi, Yoruba, Igbo, or Hausa, or Fulani, call it his own?
Okay.
These are questions we need to ask ourselves. But each time, yes, each time we supposed to have addressed an issue, then we say it's too sensitive for us to talk about it.
And then we push it away for,
keep on going around
and then we push it away for a while, and then maybe we'll come back to it again, or something else takes precedence. All right, I'll put you on hold, Senator, and come back to you shortly. Now, Asukwa, when it comes to the issue of governance, now, the Senator has taken us through, the stages and all of that. Some people will say that the founding fathers didn't lay a foundation for the kind of democracy that we are practicing right now, especially when you see the system of government we practiced in the First Republic, which was a parliamentary system, and then what in 1979 that we came up with as a presidential system. Talk to us basically, was there no template or a vision, or maybe the Nigerian kind of dream that, although this is not the United States, but that's something a Nigerian can hold on to that the founding fathers laid down?
Mike, I think there was a reason for the British to have, model us or put us or merge us together as one. Because if you look at how Nigeria is structured, the North has something, the West has something, the South and the East. They all have something that is unique, to them, to all these regions. And for the British to come and say, okay, fine, all of you can come together to become one. And that was why they started with the parliamentary system of government. And in the parliamentary system of government, it was based on the regions, And in doing that, we had what I would call development in all these regions, Either you see it being uneven or not. Because if you look at the West, for instance, the West decided, okay, fine, we want to go towards education. And in doing that, you can see how the West is. The West is far, far ahead of, of other regions in terms of education. But don't forget, once it comes to what we are eating today, we'll still go back to the North, So if you look at how the governance was actually, how Nigeria came about, there was nothing like the Nigerian dream or the American dream. And that is why it was easy for Nigeria to move away from the parliamentary system and decided, okay, for us to assuage the frayed nerves in every other region, let's now go into the presidential system of government. And the presidential system of government, which is the bicameral legislation which we are operating today. But if you look at it, it has not really paid off, because you have seen how humongous amount of money is being spent on governance, either at the executive level or the legislative level. And that is why people are always complaining about the cost of governance, that we need to reduce the cost of governance. So except, just like the Senator said, except we begin to look at, we go back to history. Are we supposed to stay together? If yes, then it means that the Constitution will need to be rejigged in such a way that I will have a say, you will have a say as a Nigerian. And any other person, or even that child, or that Amajirai that is out there, will be able to have a say and say, I need to also be included in the project called Nigeria. This is what is lacking, and that is why we are having these issues across the country and everywhere. Now, if Nigeria as a whole, because if you look at it, the constitution we are presently operating was given to us by a supposedly a military of government. Put some of them people together, and then they decided to say, we the Nigerian people. But we, who are the we? I was not called, neither was my father called, and I'm very sure the senator was not even called, to say, okay, fine, this is how we want this constitution to look like. Because it is on sitting down to analyze, to talk on a round table to say, this is what
there was no engagement.
There was no
consultation.
Nothing. Because if you look at the American Constitution, Mike, the American Constitution, before it was, before it was made into one document, all the states that made up America sat down to decide and to say, this is how we want to run our states. And that is why, if you notice in America, every state has what is unique to them. And that is what Nigeria should be. If you are going to practice the presidential system of government, every state in Nigeria should also have a say in what is in the federal constitution. We must have a state constitution, we must also have a federal constitution, and in having a state constitution, every member of that state must have a say.
All right. Senator Sani, let me come back to you on this. The point there is, when it comes to the issue of the cost of governance, you yourself have raised this alarm in the National Assembly at a time when you were there, when it comes to what it really takes. We can do without this amount of money as legislators, as leaders, as chief executives, you know, in conducting our responsibility, you know, bestowed on us by the Constitution. Now, as Asuko has said, some have said it is the system of government that is the issue, because in the First Republic, it wasn't those who were cabinet members were already members in the National Assembly, so they are like the ministers at that time. So it was the same, you know. Now, Nigerians are calling on the shift to change the system of government. But on the other hand, too, Senator, you will agree that when it comes to the ideals of how these things are, Nigeria fits a federation, which certainly these things, you should represent everyone. Talk to us from that window, how possible it is for us to cut down really on the cost of governance.
Thank you very much. Well, there are two issues you have raised here. First of all, the system of governance. If you are talking of a monarchy, it is working in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Kuwait, and also is working in Spain and Sweden and Norway. If you are talking of presidential system, it's working in Brazil, in Argentina, in United States. If you are talking of the parliamentary system, it's working in United Kingdom and a number of countries. So we can change from A to B to C as long as our character, our attitude remains where it is, and our people in the position of power continue without changing themselves. We will still be where we are, whatever system we operate. Now, when you are talking about reducing cost of governance, well, this is an issue that has become a problem when people find themselves in the position of office. For example, in the National Assembly, for 20 years, the accounts and the system of the National Assembly was operated in secrecy. When I was there, it was as if senators and members of House of Reps are afraid of people knowing what they earn. And I say, for what? And I said, I think there's a need to bring an end to this culture of secrecy, remove this veil so that people can see, even if we are going to be stoned, let's be stoned. We cannot be stoned forever. At least truth hurts, but it also heals. Let the people know. And I know it never went well with my colleagues at that time, because it was Saraki and Ekuremadu who saved my head from being chopped off. They refused. There were people who said the issue should be discussed and I should be penalized. But I think their intervention, and they had bigger problems on their heads. So I think mine was seen to be a lesser problem. And apart from that, I think we need to reach a point whereby whoever is in the position of office, whatever you are earning as salary, as an allowance, should not be treated as a cult, as a cultural denomination where you are given something and you don't want people to know. And by setting an example in the National Assembly, I have set a standard whereby it was hoped that the people, the civil society, will take it up as a challenge and demand transparency in the way public funds are being spent in the local government, the states, and then the federal government. But it's clear that all these things are shrouded in secrecy. Security votes from the state are being treated with opacity, and people don't know how much their governor is allocating for security and how much he's spending it. How state assemblies are being run, people still don't know. How local governments are being run, people don't know. How much ministers, special advisors earn, it's on paper. But when it comes to the issue of allowances, nobody will know. And the National Assembly, you can find a senator or a member of House of Reps can tell you his salary is 750, but when you call him out about his allowances, he either becomes angry or he tells you this or that. So I think fighting corruption, demanding transparency in governance should start with disclosure of whatever is being spent, public funds that is being spent. If, as a developing country, we find it difficult to cut cost of governance, then we will continue to use our resources to pay salaries and to also fund waste. And that is exactly what is happening. At times like this, with COVID-19 pandemic and the serious hit to our economy, it is an opportunity for the president, for the government as a whole, to set a new standard. And again, the president has 3 years to either write his name in the gold or in the mud. And he should know very well that at the end of the day, he will be the one to speak about his legacy and to defend his stewardship in office.
Yeah.
And he needs to do what is right, and this is the time to do it. Cutting cost of governance is an important ingredient for any nation that wants to transit from underdevelopment to development.
Okay. Now, before I let you go, the issue of financial autonomy, which is an executive order signed by the president, you tweeted recently in support of the idea of financial autonomy for state legislatures and the judiciary. On the other hand, there is the issue of the conflict in the Constitution where issues of the states are supposed to be conducted by within the state as the case may be, as provided by the Constitution, where there's a clash between Section 121 and Section 5 of the Constitution that gives the powers to the president and all of that. Where do you stand when it comes to these also trying to solve this issue of the secrecy on one hand and also cutting down on the cost of governance on the other hand?
Okay, let me tell you this. First and foremost, when people are in the position of authority, they would like to make laws or rules that will suit them in office. But many times when they are out of power, they will find such rules as either working against them or working against their interest or working against something that they believe in. So for me, there were previous attempts to give autonomy to the state legislature and also to judiciary using the constitutional amendment processes. But each time this issue is being raised and is being included in such amendments, the speakers of State House of Assembly were used by their governors to undermine and sabotage attempt to give autonomy to the state legislature and to the state judiciary. The governors always want the judiciary and the legislature to be under their direct control, financial control, so that gives them the lever to do what they want to do, to control the members of state assembly and to dictate them what they should do. And that is why you have a comatose, paralyzed, docile, and compliant state House of Assembly that were not able to perform their function as an important organ of democracy. Now, the judiciary is also suffering the same fate. So my support for the executive order is that it remains the only option, because no state governor will accept, will embrace, will endorse, will assent to any attempt to give his legislature the independence they so desire, they need as a democracy.
Okay.
So that is why I supported it. Yes.
Oh, okay. Let me put you on hold briefly. Asukwa, let me bring you back in here. Now, the issue of constitutional conferences that we have had. Now, not one, not two that we've had in the past dispensation. It is said that the constitutional conferences had brainstormed and came up with the blueprint of what Nigeria can look like, you know, and so on. But we've not been able to implement any issue from the Constitutional Conference. Talk to us from that window, how challenging it will be for any government to implement those, because that's what some Nigerians are calling for right now.
I think it will be more about if the present administration have the political will, you know, to dust the conferences, as in the reports of and the recommendations of the conferences, and look at the one that will be effective for us and will be beneficial for us. Because if you look at it, you can't say that about more than 1,000 people sitting down in one particular place trying to brainstorm on how Nigeria can be one, that they don't know what they are saying or they don't have an idea of how this country can move forward. For this present administration, if I am to advise, I would say pick up that recommendation, look at the things that, you know, they are beneficial for us as a people. Because if you look at the 1999 Constitution, I keep saying it, we need a Nigerian Constitution. Because we do not have a Nigerian Constitution, a Constitution that would look at all the problems and every problem that are embedded in all the states and be able to address it. So, and the conferences that we had was able to address most of these problems. So if the president can go back, look at all the conferences we've had, he can marry all the conferences and the things that he believes can help us to move away from the problems that we are facing today. Because if you look at it, Mike, we have a huge problem. You are talking about the cost of governance. If we have a constitution that can deal with the number and the retinue of appointees and the number of maybe the kind of system of government that we need, the kind of system that will be good for Nigeria is going to be in that one of those
documents. Exactly.
Those documents. So I think this administration has this is the opportunity. They have 3 years.
Okay.
This is the opportunity they can take on.
We also recall that he and his party were not part of the process at that time.
Exactly.
But let's leave it here right now. Thank you very much, Asuquo James, our assignment editor in TVC. Thank you so much. And Senator Shehu Sani, thank you so much for talking to us on this day, and we wish you well. Thank you.